Hi everyone, happy Saturday. So we will be coloring out of Eerie Enchantment, which is one of the latest colorit books to be published. Should surprise no one, the picture I had my eye on, even though it takes me a few minutes to find it in this, I definitely think this is going to be my favorite colorit book, or has now become my favorite colorit book. So while I take a few minutes to find the picture, this is going to be a demo / color and chat. We're going to talk a little bit about, there we go. We're going to talk a little bit about the process at the beginning and throughout. I'm going to be using the Artwell 48 watercolors and half pans. I'm also going to be using a few of the metallics by Artwell, also a 48 pan set, and we're going to be using some of the new Colorit watercolors. So here I am coloring in a newer to me book using new art supplies. So go me for doing that, for sure. And I had a request, I'll have to go find it, but I did have a request to do watercolor in a colorit book, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this. And then there's the Artwell metallics that we use, like 2 of them in here. I think it's like a silver and a purple or something like that. So haven't used these up to this point. And but I had a request to do watercolor on colorit paper. I'm also using Artify brushes. I will link to those. And then of course I have my clean water and my paint puck thing that also has water in it. So just giving you guys kind of a heads up of everything that I feel like you need to do something, you know, similar, though you don't have to have the you know, different watercolors. Obviously your watercolors may vary. I didn't want to do a standard blue sky. I get tired of blue skies, not like in real life, but just coloring. Sometimes I get real tired of coloring the same things like leaves or grass or pumpkins or sky if I'm coloring them the color that they typically are. And so especially because this is a fairy tale type image, I thought I could play a little bit with the colors. I wanted to try, typically I use a water brush for coloring with watercolors, and but with these well, let me rephrase that. Typically, I use a water brush with like watercolor pencils. But watercolor pans, I go back and forth. A lot of it depends on the paper, and I feel like the brushes did a really good job on this paper. Because colorit paper is a thicker cardstock type paper, you can move around the color while it's wet. You can wet the paper a little more than you can like Amazon paper, so that's a couple reasons why I switched to the watercolor brush for this, is just because I can use more water on this paper than I can in Amazon paper. A lot of times the water brush will help me limit the amount of water I use on an Amazon page. It's been a while since I colored with watercolor paints, so this was nice. I actually got out on my porch and was spending some time doing that. I have some elderly neighbors, I guess, that have moved in. I don't know if they're family of the person who lives there or what, but they like to go and sit on their front porch stoop area now, and they listen to like the 90s country station, which I don't necessarily mind some of the time, because it's like I'm not a huge fan of country except for like 90s country, which was when I was growing up. So, that I don't necessarily mind listening to. There's a lot of things they could be listening to that would be even severely annoying. But like, it's every day, y'all. Every day. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard Fancy by Reba McEntire and Don't Take the Girl by Tim McGraw and all of them. I've heard those dozens of times over the last few weeks. And while I enjoy them, it gets a little tiresome hearing the same ones over and over again. Though I will to this day say that anytime Fancy comes on, I have to like really keep myself from being extra singing along to that. Like, one of these days it's going to come on and I'm going to just haul off in the yard and give a performance, and they they literally will not be able to take their eyes off me, because I'm crazy. And that is a song I'm all kinds of extra on when I sing. I think anybody is, right? Like, I mean, that's just one of those iconic songs where it just has to be done a certain way, right? Um, anyway, so that's the reason why I did a voiceover on this one, because, of course, copyrighted music was playing, and I didn't want it to cause any issues with loading this video. So you kind of miss the outdoor sounds, which stinks, other than the radio. It is pretty crazy that and then for the past 2 days there's been somebody out there cutting trees, and I came in and told my husband yesterday. I mean, it's crazy. I live technically inside a city limits, but you know how big the city is, like, of actual people within city limits? It's less than 1,000. Somebody got hoity-toity, as they call it, and I know who it was, because he always wants to make us seem bigger than we are. I know exactly who it is. Petitioned that we be called a city instead of referred to as a town, and so like in all our official documentation we're referred to as the city of blank, and it's so stupid, y'all. It's just so stupid. It's one of those things, it's like, why are you worrying about this when we've got elderly people that can't pay their water bills because our water rates are so high? Like, it's just, yeah, okay. Well, we're gonna veer back away from politics, but my point being is that somehow I have, according to the attitude of the people in this community, I have moved into the worst of both a city scenario and a country scenario, being that my neighbors let their dogs run free all the time. My husband actually had one that was growling at him when he went to the mailbox the other day, which did not, he managed to get him to go away, but I mean, that could have not went well. But it's causing stress on Leroy because he doesn't like dogs, and they just run around my yard, and I keep my animals penned up, or I keep my animals indoors, and all they have is the porch, and they don't like being on the porch now as much because of the dogs, and it's just, anyway. So apparently I asked for it because I chose to move into the country, and in the country people can let their dogs run around because that's their right. And apparently the right to me to own my own private property and to keep, and for things to not roam on my property, apparently doesn't count. No. So I apparently get to live in the country while I'm here by allowing the dogs to run around and not cause a fit about it. You also have to be careful about people these days, And my neighbor seems nice enough, but he knows I don't like them being out. And there's no point in going and talking to him, because if I talk to him, then it becomes an incident. And if I talk to the police about it, who's supposed to have a part-time animal control officer, but I can tell you they don't ever come over here. They're probably just sit in the office all day, to be quite honest. Our city feels pretty... This is speaking from somebody who was on the city council a few years ago. It is pretty corrupt and off the rails now, and people turning their blinders to it was one of the reasons I just gave up. It was at the expense of my own health and my sanity that I was trying to get people to listen, and they weren't listening and participating and paying attention, and I just was like, no, I'm not going to be a part of this slow descent into madness that this city will become. So yeah, apparently I live in the country, and I brought this upon myself, and I should just get over the fact that the dogs roam around. But I'm also in the city limits, which means I hear the high school, when they play baseball at the field, they blast music all day. I get to hear trees being cut and all this other stuff that you normally would hear in a city, right? But apparently I signed up for that too, because I live in the city. So which is it, people? Y'all need to decide. Because you're giving me conflicting information. Anyway, the whole point being is that I love my house, I love my porch, but in recent years it has really become more difficult to use it, just because of all the other factors happening around me. And I certainly don't like it that the cats are stressed out. And if the dogs were running around in their yard freely, I would be fine with that. Oh, here's the color. So I mixed, I think it was scarlet with white, which, because I didn't pick a deep enough red color, I got more of like an apricot color instead of, I'm using, I think it's the malachite green next, is what I'm showing here. Let me look real quick. I'm pretty sure it's the malachite green that I go with for the bushes. Yep. But, so yeah, like, I'm not very good at color mixing, because I just haven't done it very much. So, like, I should have picked a deeper red if I wanted a true pink, and so instead I got, like, an apricot kind of color, but that's okay. The sky's kind of grown on me. I first was putting it down, I'm like, I don't like this color, but ever since then, I mean, it's down now. One of the things to note about these is I don't know if it's just the paper or it's the watercolors, but they do not lift very well. So if you make a mistake, they do like to stain the page, and it's really hard to like go back over them to lighten them up or get rid of the color, because they do like to stain. And again, I don't know if that's specific to the paper. I don't know if that's due to the type of watercolor. I've been watching a lot of watercolor videos this week from the Frugalcrafter and Kristy Rice, I think, and from what I've seen them talk about the art wells, it may be that they just like to stain the paper due to the binders that they use and stuff. So just a heads up there. I'm still going to be messy with them, because that's just who I am as a person. But it is harder to erase oopsies with these, just because they tend to want to stay on the paper and not lift as much, like if you're trying to lighten them up. So just something to keep aware of. Let's see. So that is one, I guess, depending on how you use the watercolors, that's one disadvantage. And I meant to mention at the beginning, but you saw it in the intro card, This is probably going to be my last watercolor summer picture that I do a demo on, and we're just showing the watercolor part of it today. Because Michelle doesn't think she's going to be able to get the pencil part of it done before the end of the month. And so this will probably sit for a year before I do anything with it. But it's been a hard month. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the coloring chat. I'm trying not to like dump a whole lot of negativity and feeling down at the beginning of the video. I'm going to save that for the end for those of you that want the real tea, so to speak. So I'm kind of splitting this into a half and half type deal where I talk about the actual watercolor part and then we do a coloring chat. And watercolor summer's been, and I guess we can kind of reflect on it a little bit. I'll do a showcase. I'll try to do a showcase next weekend of watercolor summer for September. If Instagram allows me to. Next year, I'm going to have to rethink how I do showcases, or we may have to do something different because Instagram is making it harder to see everybody's posts. As if you use Instagram and you're familiar with it, it's making it harder to see all the posts to a tag right now, and so it makes it a little harder to do showcases where you look back at everybody's through the tags. So, but we are wrapping this up at the end of September. Tammy from Tammy Colors 2 and I have been co-hosting this, and I would say I think I've done better than I did last year, but August was a tough month and I really didn't get a lot of demo videos done, and then this month I haven't gotten to a lot of pages I wanted to too. So but fret not, watercolor demos on here will continue after the fact. At some point in the future I will get to coloring tips and tricks for watercolors, kind of like I've done with markers. And I'll still be doing watercolor demos, especially right now, because it feels like watercolor is one of those things I'm enjoying doing a lot right now. Of course, I'm happily sitting there putting a watercolor base on a bunch of pages, but I'm not actually finishing the page. So I've created a lot of whips this month. But sometimes that's okay. They'll get done at some point when I'm back in the mood to use pencils. So, and I could have come back with watercolors and just finished this with watercolors, but I'm also not feeling like trying to remember how to do that since it's been a while since I've done that. So, yeah. One of the things I've been, like I said, watching a lot of watercolor videos from Lindsay, the Frugal Crafter, and Kristy Rice this week, and actually learning a lot about them, like the art whales and the different watercolors. And part of that was because when I bought more watercolors for this haul, like, I didn't realize how similar they were to stuff I kind of already had, and so it was like, I don't want to do this again because this just feels, I don't want to buy 20 different things and they're all just pretty much the same thing. Like, I'd like to have a little bit of variety. And so I watched some of their videos, I think, and I'll put in the two that I think were the most helpful. One of them, like, Lindsay went through her whole watercolor collection, which was great. For like, and that included the art whales, talking briefly about them, but there were things I didn't know, like student grade and cheaper, more budget watercolors use um, more dye based instead of pigment based, which is why they tend to stain more. They're not as easy to lift. But the key thing of all of it is a lot of what they're talking about is watercolor like art. So you're on watercolor paper, you're doing different types of art using different types of watercolor techniques. I think for just doing what I'm doing here, like just putting a base of color down on a page or going back over with different layers to build up, color and dimension, like I don't think you need anything super expensive. Um, the biggest thing I found is some of them can be a bit chalky when they dry and they just have a weird texture to them. The very first set I bought was a super inexpensive set, and that was how it dried, and I did not like that. So I did look more at the kind of medium range student grade. I don't have any artist grade, but I've got a couple on my wish list that I'll probably like invest in one brand or something down the road because I would like to learn, watercolor art too. It's definitely a challenge for me because I like pictures more like this that have defined lines and defined places where colors go and do, and watercolors more of a kind of let things flow freely um kind of medium, and so I feel like it's a bit of a challenge for me. So, speaking of the Frugal Crafter, she actually just put out a new class. I don't know if it's still half off, but I went ahead and signed up for it. I figured it would be something a little different, and she recommends like you use little postcards too, and that way I'm not working on a great big picture and feeling overwhelmed, and I can do it a few times, on different types of paper if I want. And it's one of those classes that you have like access to supposedly forever. But in this digital world, as we've seen, that is the one thing. Digital content has made me a little nervous because, before movies and shows being a perfect example here, um, like you bought your stuff on, well, first VHS and I guess Betamax for some, but then you bought everything on DVDs to be able to watch it over and over again. I don't know why there's a pause here. I might have been talking to Brent. Hopefully it's not a long pause. Okay, well, if it is, I'll go back and cut it out. So, there we go. I think I was thinking and mixing. Um, but then they started making everything available digital, and they're like, hey, you can buy seasons of a show and have it right here in your digital library on this streaming service, and you can watch them anytime and you own them forever, right? At least that's what you think. But then you've got streaming services removing shows. And I think they're even removing access to the people who have purchased those shows. And it's kind of like, excuse me. What are you doing? And so now it's got me rethinking buying like digital movies and stuff. Because who knows, right? And well, especially right now, I'm not buying anything because of the whole strike thing. But it's just, yeah, it's anyway. That's so it makes me think a lot of any type of digital content that I have access to. I'm supposed to have access to it forever, and that may be the case, but you also don't know if a site will ever go down, and companies will fold and things like that. So I would say if you have ample storage, it's always I guess best to store what you can on your own drive so that you have personal access to it. So, um, even makes me think of things like storing photos on like my Google Drive and stuff. And there's a whole nother level there too of, you have to be careful. Like sometimes these companies can look at what you have on there and use it for marketing, like depending on how their legal information is set up and stuff. Like there's been some recent concern about that kind of thing, and it's just it's funny because my work and my life's been heavily computer based and technology based ever since I went to college, and even I'm like, we're getting into some sketchy stuff here. So here I'm coming in with this light green. I think it was a combination of the yellow green, and then I added in, yeah, it was yellow green, and I added in some other green. I think it was emerald green deep, just a touch of it to give it just a little bit of a more green color. Like it's bright, but I wanted it less yellow, more green. So, um, would I ever be able to duplicate these mixes again? Probably not. I think there's some days where I seriously want to get a pad of paper, like just a big pad of watercolor paper, and just create mixing swatches just so I can get more used to color mixing and know what I have at least a little bit of an idea of what mixing A would be gets you C, but I'm definitely not super knowledgeable in that either. So probably we'll get around to that. Let's see. So I know I keep going off into random subjects. I was trying to think. I'll talk about the rest of this picture as time goes on, but the watercolor I feel like did really well. It wasn't super smooth like some areas. So this is like a cardstock. This is probably more of like a marker friendly cardstock that you would buy to print out pictures on, is the colorit paper. And so with watercolor on it, you can definitely use more water, um, and it won't buckle or wrinkle like Amazon paper. So that's a plus to it. You do, and like I said, you don't have to worry about the fragileness of the paper. It does, however, it is not watercolor paper. So you're definitely not going to get as much movement as you would on watercolor paper or on paper that's been treated with something that makes it like watercolor paper. So, you can see spots where it's still a little uneven. Like, the cool thing is I can come back and work over it if I want to even it up a little bit more. But with this just being a base layer, I'm not that worried about it. But if I was coming through and like this was a final layer, or I was using just watercolor, I probably would want it to be a little more even. But I'm just not worrying about it too much because of that. But like I said, because it's not watercolor paper, um, it's going to still be a bit streaky when you put on the color. The good news is, like I said, you can come back and work over spaces without having to let them dry completely because the paper is built a little stronger. So watercolor on cardstock gives you a better experience than Amazon paper, but it's still not like, it's not going to give you the movement or the ability to super blend colors and stuff that watercolor paper or treated paper will give you, I guess, is my experience with it. And so I'm going to continue to use the art wheel, like the regular watercolor set here. The castle, I'm going to use a couple of the metallics from the art wheel set. And then for the bunnies, I thought I'd do something special with them. And so they're going to get the Colorit watercolors, the candy, and I think I just used the candy set with them. I just wanted to make them kind of metallic and shiny, kind of fantasy. And so, and then at the end, I get a little idea and do a little bit of blending with his feathers on his hat, and I really like how that comes out. So, so yeah, for the person, if I can find you, I will tag you, and of course in that comment we'll provide a link to this. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't have any problem using watercolor in colorit books. One of the issues I run into is a lot of the colorit art is complex and detailed, and so I personally prefer to use it on a page like this where it's a little more balanced. There's not as many detail areas. And see right here, I realized I went into his stomach a little bit there. I think I tried to come back with some water to lift that out, but that green's stained. I think pencil will cover it up well enough, but yeah, you can see me. Normally, with watercolor, you can go in and use extra water and lighten up where you accidentally, went into a spot or something, and like basically lift that color away, and this is not going to let you do it. And so I don't know if it's the paint or the paper or a combination thereof. But in watching those videos from Lindsay and Kristy Rice, I actually ordered a couple more basic sets that have a little more color variety to them. Yeah, I know, like I need it anymore. But I do want to get the Paul Rubin, I think it's a 48 set. I put that on my wish list, maybe for like Christmas or something. And eventually, I don't know if that's considered artist grade or student grade. I think it's student grade. Eventually, I would like to invest in artist grade watercolor just because I would like to get into more watercolor art. But the cool thing about the class I signed up for Lindsay is that she uses the May Lang, which is the Pretty Excellent watercolors, which are kind of a budget watercolor buy. And I had actually bought my set based on her recommendation. That's also a really good set to use for watercolor. Like especially if you're just using it as a base for color. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think I had everything. I just had to get the postcards. And I ordered more brushes because I'm weak. And it's not like I have 20,000 watercolor brushes as it is. So yeah. I guess that's pretty much the demo part of this. And I'm sure there'll be pauses like this. So I'm going in real time. I'm not sure if y'all noticed. I'm sure you did. And at one point I may speed this up. I don't know because I want to chat and I don't know how long it will take. So if it starts speeding up after this is why. Because it's like a 2-hour long real-time video, and I do not have an hour and a half worth of things to talk about. So, give me a second. I actually just realized, like, when was the last color and chat I did? Because I feel like it's been a hot minute, right? It's just mostly been flip throughs, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Yeah, it's been demos and flips, and demos and flips. Oh yeah, I haven't done a full-on color and chat since The end of July? Wow. That's just obnoxiously loud. Did a motorcycle crew just pass? Yes, they did, actually. A lot of times they'll do charity rides around here, and it might be something like that. So, but yeah, no, I realized I haven't done a color and chat since the end of July. So maybe this will be a little bit long, because I have talked here and there about things that have happened. But I really just haven't had one, you know, if you happen to be catching the end of a video, you might hear it, but like I haven't just sat down in a video and been like, hey, this is what's happened the last few months. And we all know that's unusual for me because I do love to talk. So, I gotta tell y'all, like, I'm living for this bright green right now. I love this color. I'm going to try to remember how I did that, because I love that color. And I darkened it just a touch for these hills in the distance, just to create a little bit of a color difference. Because obviously, well, I say obviously, but I can't pick up a lot of rules about coloring in art. But the one thing I do know is, like, stuff closer to you should be lighter, the stuff farther away should be darker. And so that's what I'm doing here, is I mix just a little bit more of that emerald green deep with the yellow green. So and as you can tell, I'm being a bit sloppy about it, but that's one of the reasons I want to do watercolor classes, because I felt rather lazy and not super careful about my watercolor, about any of my coloring lately. So I'm hoping watercolor will allow me to be that. Maybe I can learn to be controlled and free in my coloring and doing that. I also like to use the big brush for everything because I'm lazy and I don't want to switch brushes. So you'll see as we go along, I do finally start switching to smaller brushes so I can get into better detail. So, all right, let me go ahead and put down this timestamp. So like I said, it has been couple months since I've done an official color and chat. A lot, yet I guess very little has been going on. So in the start, like literally the first week of August, I got my plans video and I got my planner all set up and was ready to go. And then I woke up, I think it was actually that weekend I was working on it. I woke up that Saturday, like the first Saturday in August, pretty much. And right under my right arm, where the armpit is, on the lower end of the armpit, like right where, like if you're a lady, you've got that side boob stuff going on there. Well, I guess if you're a bigger lady. Right where like that underarm and your side kind of meet. It woke me up. It was aching so bad. It was weird. The only other time I had ever had that even happen just a little bit was when I had mono, like almost 10 years ago. And it was aching pretty bad. And I was like, okay, this is odd. And as I was doing videos and stuff that day, like I noticed I really wasn't feeling well. And I thought it was just seasonal. Like, you know, sometimes when I go through a high period of stress, I get these flare-ups where I'm fatigued and feeling like I have an illness coming on, and it goes away after 2 or 3 days of rest. So I figured that's what this was. I just needed to rest for 2 or 3 days, not do much, and it'll go away. It did not, in fact, go away, dear readers. And I ended up taking off work that week, I couldn't get in to see the doctor until like Thursday. And not only was that aching, but like I was aching in my chest area too, which was again very unusual. And I was worried about it. So I had went to the doctor, and I've had mono before, but I was like, boy, this, I had a sore throat. I just felt sick. And, you know, the whole time I was like, man, this feels an awful lot like when I had mono. And so I figured it was some sort of viral thing. And I knew the doctor couldn't help much, but I was so sore, and the ache under my arm and stuff was worrying me because that was pretty new and it was a lot more extreme than the last time that happened, that I made the appointment to talk to them about that and the chest stuff. She just, of course, the doctor that I see, so this is a local health clinic that carries, like, I guess a lot of nurse practitioners use this as a stepping stone, and I'll find really good ones. And you're like, why don't you just go to a regular medical practice? Well, that's because they're all like 30 plus minutes away. And it's been really nice to just be able to go across town, especially if I have like a lunchtime appointment or something. I haven't needed to take like a long time off of work for these appointments. And the first person that took like my chronic illness issues seriously was actually a nurse practitioner from there. He actually lives a couple doors down from me. And he was awesome. But apparently the place is awful to work at. I've heard it from multiple nurse practitioners I've seen there. And they've all been good, but inevitably, you know, and it's happening now with more frequency, they'll not renew their contract and they'll move on. And so the lady I was seeing had not renewed her contract, and so they wanted me to see somebody else. And it wasn't who I thought it was. I thought it was somebody different I had seen before and liked, but this woman, like, I instantly had a dislike for her when she came in, because she was just like, oh, so I had heat. When I have, like, there's inflammation happening in my chest at that time and on occasion where it is hot to the touch. I know it's inflammation because it's hot to the touch. And this woman, in almost the same breath, told me that costochondritis shouldn't be causing any sort of heat, but that what I have sounds like costochondritis. And I was like, do you hear what you just said? But honestly, I was feeling so bad, I just couldn't argue with her. And she was like, well, it sounds like it's a virus and your body's trying to fight it off, which is why you've got that aching probably around your lymph node. She's like, I'm going to prescribe you some steroids to take, and then we're going to do a steroid shot today. And I was like, okay, good. Well, at least this will help me feel a little better, because I was really feeling bad at that point. And usually I get a steroid shot and, like, boom, I'm wide awake and I feel it, and it's instantly, you know, improved within 24 hours. And, like, it was like she gave me nothing, which I thought was weird. Then Friday, of course, Friday evening, when the facility is closed, I start developing a pain in my right arm. Like, it had been aching so bad in the armpit, I was feeling it through my upper arm. But then it started to get real red, like it was sunburned. And it started to really ache in my arm. And I was like, oh, excuse my language, oh shit. Like, I don't know what this is, because this has never happened. And y'all, that weekend was so hard. The steroids felt like they were doing nothing. And my guess is that they were doing something. And had I not had them, who knows how bad it was, but, like, it was barely tolerable as it was. That Saturday, I was so miserable. I mean, I literally couldn't do anything but just lay in bed the whole week, and particularly that Saturday because I felt that my arm hurt so bad. I would lay on my left side, and my husband would stack ice packs. My right arm was so hot and so red to the touch. He stacked ice packs on my arm, and I just laid like that for hours. Of course, they're like, oh, well, you should take, the ice packs off every now and then. No, no. The only way I was going to be able to doze or sit there and listen to an audiobook or just exist was to have something trying to cool down my arm. Because even if you took the pack off and laid your hand on my arm, it was hot. Like, there was no soothing. It was not going away. It was just helping me tolerate it. And so I gave the steroids a few days, hoping maybe they would kick in and help with this. And it wasn't getting any better. And so we're coming back up on Monday. And I'm like, hell. I'm going to have to call her back. I didn't like her to begin with because she just kind of waved her hand and dismissed stuff. They did test me for COVID. I was negative. I know that there's always a chance that it could be a false negative, but this wasn't I guess it was because I checked my nose. Yeah, well, as far as I know, it wasn't COVID. And I didn't have, I don't know, any of the current variants that are out there, I didn't have any of the symptoms. So this was all different symptoms. And, but no, COVID was the first thing I thought of because I've been worried about that, and that was negative. So she's like, oh, you should follow up with some of the specialists. It's like, as soon as she saw my chart, I had a rheumatologist. She acted like she half didn't want to touch me. And she just wanted to not be bothered and have me go see my specialists. And, but then that following Monday, I called in first thing and I said, something weird's going on in my right arm. And, it's, hot to the touch, it's painful, it's all through my arm now. And so I do a telehealth on Tuesday, and I was like, they were installing new windows or something that week, so they couldn't see anybody in the office. That all had to be telehealth. And I was like, well, I don't know how much good this is going to do because she can't really physically see my arm. But we went over it Tuesday, and she's like, it sounds like cellulitis. And I first off was like, what is that? And two, okay. And she said, I'm going to have to call you in antibiotics for that. And I looked it up, and it's a bacterial infection where apparently, bacteria lives on your skin, and there's always a possibility, especially in people that have immune issues. Wish y'all could see me pointing at myself, though nobody wants to believe me. If your immune system is down or struggling, or you're immunocompromised, it can cause infections to set up. And so I had cut my hand while I was trying to slice an apple the previous week on that arm. And weirdly enough, I think that's where it happened. If it was in fact cellulitis, I don't think we'll ever know for sure. But I had never had that before. And I looked it up and I was like, okay, that's weird. That's kind of what it sounds like. But it's weird because I didn't have any sort of boils or any sort of blisters on the surface of my skin like I should have. So she called me in these gigantic antibiotics. I had to take the second week off work. And because my arm was hurting so bad, I could not work. I'm right-handed and I couldn't work. I couldn't color. I couldn't do nothing. After about a week and a half of that, I was really over that. And it took 3 or 4 days for those antibiotics to finally kick in. It took a long time, and it felt like it was very slow to improve. And so I had to take another half a week off the next week. This was all unpaid, mind you. So that was great. And so that got better. The cellulitis, I think, went away. I at least hope it did, with the antibiotics. And my arm itself isn't sunburned looking. It isn't super hot to the touch or whatever. So I got through all the other symptoms and stuff, but ever since I've had to go back to work and ever since I got over all that, the fatigue I struggle with has went up like 3 times the amount it was before. Like, I was already having trouble where I would, like, a few days a week, especially towards the end of the week, I would use my lunch to take naps instead of eating lunch because I had to have a nap in the middle of the day to be able to finish out the day at work. And that's not unusual for me. That's the way it's been for a number of years. But, like, it went from a few days a week to, like, every freaking day. I needed that time. And sometimes I needed, like, 2 hours instead of just an hour. And it's been like that ever since. So I've been having a lot of trouble with fatigue. And that ache under my arm is still there. It's not, well, I don't know, last night it was pretty bad. It comes and goes. And it's always associated, it's always in line with how fatigued and exhausted I feel. The more fatigued and exhausted I feel, the more it hurts. And I had one doctor that would actually feel under that arm to see. That's the craziest part. I've seen 4 or 5 doctors in the last 2 months, and only one of them actually physically felt around in that area to see if they could feel anything. Nobody else checked, which I think is ridiculous. But I didn't like. He's an asshole anyway, so I would have rather had one of the other doctors do it. But anyway, that ache under my arm is still there. It'll sometimes spread into my chest area if it's bad enough. And it makes working, it makes coloring, it makes doing anything way more difficult just because A, it's hurting. And if it hurts bad enough, it aches into my actual upper arm. And B, like, the fatigue that comes with it makes it hard to do anything. And it's been like that ever since. Y'all, I've been to my cardiologist just to make sure the chest pain wasn't anything heart related. I've had like 3 EKGs or whatever they're called, ECGs, whatever, this past few months. They've all been fine. I had an incident right after she gave me the antibiotics where I had to go to the ER in the middle of the night because I thought I was having a heart attack. And turns out they ran blood work, they did an EKG, they did all the things and didn't see any sign of a heart attack. The only thing they could think of is the steroids, the antibiotics, and having switched to Tylenol instead of ibuprofen, which always causes me stomach issues. They think it was just gas, basically. They just think it was an air bubble that came up from my stomach from all the medication and just caused kind of a gas attack. I don't know. That was fun. But I went to the cardiologist just to make sure. And he said my heart was fine, practically patted me on the head and told me not to worry about it. I didn't have any heart disease, which felt very condescending. He didn't actually pat me on the head, but that's sure what it felt like. Then I went to my rheumatologist and oh my gosh. If anybody remembers, I had switched to this guy because I didn't like my other rheumatologist, and they were the only one in my county. So I found this guy in Nashville that had high ratings, and he had like a 6-month waiting list. And so or a 6-month, waiting to get an appointment. So I waited 6 months to see this man. And I, in all my years of dealing with doctors, have never met a more condescending, pompous jerk. I don't know how that man is in business. I don't know what type of patients he typically sees, but this man is just convinced that I could go in there and have another arm growing out of my body, and he would be like, it's your fibromyalgia. It's like as soon as he found out I had that, everything is associated with fibromyalgia. Even if it's not, like I've looked it up and it's not associated with it. Because this man wants to collect a paycheck and not do any work. And I was already pretty pissed and traumatized by the December appointment. And I knew going back to him was not going to go well. But I was like, I'm going to try. Maybe he was just having a bad time. Like it was around Christmas or something. Maybe things would be better. No. He got mad when I talked about the lymph node under my arm and that I'm concerned it might have something to do with that. Like he was mad that I even mentioned it. Like I somehow shouldn't know what a lymph node is, and the fact that it's under my arm. Like he gets weirdly mad about things. Like he just gaslighting, just awful. And I was like, it felt like when I had mono, and he's like, well, that's not what we do here. We don't look for mono and stuff. I said, I am well aware of that. And I started to get mad at him. And I said, nobody said I had it. I told you it felt like I had it. And he's like, well, basically, what do you want me to do about it? And I'm like, I want you to check me. Because lymph nodes, are associated a lot with autoimmune disorders. And I'm like, I want you to thoroughly test me for things like Lyme, autoimmune disorders, all these things that you're supposed to do that is in your wheelhouse. And I guess I moved him to slightly concerned. And he had a tantrum about it. Like, he had to actually physically examine me. And he was almost half stomping around. Like, oh my gosh, I had to get my lazy butt up off this chair and actually do something. It was awful. And, he ran the same panel he always runs, which is just the bare minimum. And he did do a mono test, and it was negative. And nobody else had done it prior to that, which I thought was hilarious. And of course, all my numbers came back like they always do, because he doesn't actually test for anything deeper. Like, he just does his surface basic blood test. It did show my inflammation numbers were way past the mark, but he's like, oh, I'm not worried. So if it shows something, he's like, I'm not worried about that. So I had my cardiologist basically say, there's nothing wrong with your heart. None of this is in my wheelhouse. My rheumatologist was like, I don't want to do anything in regards to this. So this isn't for, I'm not going to help you. I went back to the nurse practitioner, and she suggested I try the orthopedic doctor, and that he might do an MRI. And she's like, at this point, we probably should do an MRI just to check the muscles and tissues on that side, just to make sure there's not something going on with your lymph node or anything else. And I was like, that would be great. I would love to have somebody actually just take a closer look to rule anything out. Because this is a weird pain, guys. I have dealt with pain for 10 years. I know what joint pain feels like. I know what inflammation feels like. I know what my fibro pain feels like. I know that this is not what that is. This is feels like an ache. And it's, like I said, it's amazing how the more it hurts, the worse I feel, like, physically, which to me feels like I'm fighting off something. And for some reason, the right lymph node is the one that's trying to do something, and it's not keeping up, or something's going on, right? If anybody out there has ever had something similar happen, please let me know in the comments, because at this point, So I went to see the orthopedic doctor, and she's like, the nurse practitioner said, I don't want to schedule an MRI because last time I did, the orthopedic doctor wanted to do an MRI, and they got mad because insurance would only pay for one. So she's like, he'll do one. So I went to see the orthopedic doctor. First off, he only wanted to look at my arm. He took an x-ray of my shoulder, which has nothing to do with this. And of course, everything looked fine, as would be expected. He wouldn't look at the chest pain stuff because they don't look at chests at that office, which I find absolutely bizarre, especially when you've had it ruled out by a cardiologist that it's chest issues, or that it's heart related. But he looked at it and he's like, oh, well, it just sounds like there's a lot of inflammation there, and I think you should do physical therapy, which I'm not disagreeing with. One of the things I didn't mention, because I forgot, is when the pain started, right before the arm pain started, I started having a lot of weakness in that arm. And still to this day, I don't feel confident holding on to like a half-gallon pitcher of tea or something like that without having my other arm there to support it. Like, I don't feel like I can lift a lot with that arm. And I'm always, like, I've been dropping stuff more recently, like cat bowls and stuff when I'm trying to, and it's not my hands. Like, I have a good grip. It's just, like, my arm almost just, it's weak. It feels weak. And it like, the pains, it comes and goes. And so I mentioned that, of course, I've mentioned that to everybody, and I mentioned it to the orthopedic doctor, and I mentioned the ache under the arm. And he's like, well, I don't know what's going on under your arm. That's not my area. But it sounds like you have a lot of inflammation in your arm from when you were sick, and so you need physical therapy, which I'm not knocking. I wouldn't mind giving it a try. Especially since I've had that weakness, it might help me build up some strength. But I am worried that it will cause more pain under my arm if it's not, because it's not near a joint or anything. Anyway. So I got some orders for a local place here in my town that I can use so I don't have to drive to the next town over. However, I still haven't dropped that paper off because when I got back from his office, so after 2.5 weeks, roll back a little bit. After 2.5 weeks of being out of work, I did go back to work, but it has been a struggle, and I've had to log on early and stay on late to compensate for like the days I have to take an hour and a half or 2 hours lunch just to nap. And I mean, I've been talking to my boss about it. He's my manager. He's been very understanding about it and stuff, and it should have been gradually getting better, but it hasn't been. But I was supposed to come back. This was last Thursday with the orthopedic. I was supposed to come back and log back into work. And I came back from that appointment. It was like first thing in the morning. I had to get up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning to go. And I don't know what just happened, but I just completely physically I laid down for a few hours thinking I could go ahead and do my nap for the day. And that way I don't have to, take any more time off. I could not just physically get out of that bed. I was so exhausted. I ended up having to take the day off, and I ended up just sleeping all day or just laying in the bed. I was just so physically weak. I just couldn't get up, and that was scary because I haven't been feeling like that for a number of years. And so, of course, he didn't want to do an MRI. And so I called my nurse practitioner Monday. I was like, since she already said she wanted to do an MRI, now I can get her to call me in one. So every other doctor has said this is not in their wheelhouse. I disagree with the rheumatologist because I feel like this is autoimmune related, but I'm not going to get any help from him.
So I'm back to the nurse practitioner, and I'm like, who is there a specialist out there that will actually look at that lymph node area, will look at whatever's in that area? Like, is there a specialist I need to go to? Because I've seen quite a few of them, and all of them say that it's nothing that they can do or nothing that's in their expertise level. So who exactly is this supposed to be seen by? Like, that's the first question I want answered. And the second one is, can we please do the MRI? Um, so I called the nurse practitioner, and I kid you not, guys, they called me back and said that she's going to be out until October. And that they're trying to figure out basically what to do with me. And so what do? They schedule me an appointment with another nurse practitioner there for next Wednesday, because now I have to explain to him everything like I've had to do multiple times the past few months before he will. And I don't even know. I don't even know if he will schedule an MRI. He may push back and tell me he doesn't think I need one, at which point I will probably come unglued. Because this is just ridiculous. It's been 2 months. It's been 2 months of this. And I am terrified something weird is going on in there, and nobody is taking me seriously. And nobody wants to touch it. So, if anybody out there has ever had a lymph node ache like this, off and on, really associated with like fatigue and feeling bad and this and that, and has had anything like a cellulitis thing pop up or something like that, please let me know. Because I don't know where to go from here. All I know is that it is making work next to impossible. It is making me be able to live my life next to impossible. And usually I am the type that will at least come up with some theories as to what's going on, and I just don't know. I looked up things like lymphoma. The thing with lymphoma is typically there's no pain, it's just swollen lymph nodes. And as far as everybody's been able to tell, they're not swollen. So I'm hoping now. The likelihood that I have something that's that's atypical is also very likely, because that's just how my life goes. But, I worry about stuff like that. I worry about when they do a mammogram. Of course, they take pictures of your chest area. But do they get if you have tissue on the side, like if you have really large tatas, I guess? I'm trying to think. Like, I already am going to have to rate this different on YouTube. But, like, if the breast tissue is going into the sides, like, does a mammogram pick that up? Would, that at that point, that's why I said I would like an MRI. I have seen the possibility of that lymph node being blocked, which is could be causing the pain and stuff, and a lot of times they have to go in there and like remove them. My left one has bugged me on occasion during all this, like just a little twinge, but nothing like my right under my arm. It's been aching. Last night it ached as bad as it did that very first day I was sick. It was just ridiculous. And in the middle of all this, because I was having to lay and sit weird because of all the pain in my right side, I flared up my sciatica nerve. So I've been dealing with that some. Last night, I woke up from a nap and under my arm was killing me. I had sciatica pain in my lower right side, above, like kind of where the kidney's at, that stretched out around to my hip, and I was having heartburn. And it was like this triangle of despair in my body that was happening. And I was just laying on that couch, and I was just so miserable. And I should have felt so much better after getting up from that nap, but I did not. It all hurt. and I couldn't move. I was curled up on my left side because the way my right hip and stuff was hurting. And it was hard to even just scroll through my phone. I was trying to use my left arm as much as I could. And of course, Reaper Cheap wanted to lay on me. So he's stomping around on that right side of my chest, which was hurting. And so I had to move him. And it just, like I said, we're almost 2 months into this. And I don't think anybody knows what to do, to be quite honest. I don't know. The only reason I didn't throw a fit about seeing this new nurse practitioner is my husband went to see him for a physical last month and liked him real well. So I want to give him a chance because I've never seen him before. If this does not work out, if I can't get them to do something, refer me to somebody that will do something, I guess I'm going to have to try to find a new, like, just permanent doctor. Which sucks because that was the whole reason I ended up at this clinic in the first place, was because my regular doctor wasn't taking me seriously. So it's like I can't catch a break. And in the middle of all this, in the middle of all this, I've been seeing my therapist, and I've been having a lot of issues, just because I'm physically hurting, but I'm just, is it Miranda Lambert, the My Give a Damn's Busted song? Like, seriously, it's just been, it's put on a I'm on vacation sign, and it has got up and walked out. And my therapist is pretty convinced that I am in a serious burnout situation, just due to health issues, due to work. I just hit my year anniversary at work, and I laugh about it because, quickly here, I get fancy with the watercolor. It's one of the reasons I think it took so long for me to set this up. And yeah, I end up doing a rainbow on his feathers, and it actually turns out really nice. I was pleasantly surprised. Um, but anyway, I hit my year anniversary at work on September 12th this month, and when I tell you, like, every time I'm like, it's a year, I look at that meme of the Titanic lady who's like, it's been 84 years. Like, that is me, like, really how I feel. I knew that when I signed up for this job, that, when I was offered this job, that it was a heavy workload kind of job. They're just, it's the culture of the workplace. I'm trying to think of what I can say here. It's the culture of the workplace to basically everybody has a heavy workload, and they like to talk about work-life balance, but everybody's working long hours on big projects all the time, and it's a very stressful, high-performing environment. And I knew that when I signed on. But there is a difference between high-performing and just not having enough bandwidth and just going like that nonstop for months and months and months. And that's kind of what happened. Is I didn't take a breath until July. So I started in September. I honestly did not take a breath at work until July, it feels like. Like, it just was that extreme. There's high performing, and then there's just out of control. This was just out of control. I got a lot accomplished, and I was proud of myself, but that 6 months of subsiding on like cheese sticks and kids cereal because I was so stressed and just sleeping and working basically and barely existing, I think had probably a lot to do with me getting sick. I do have chronic illness. Now, what I have is up for debate because, again, I can't get anybody to actually dig in deeper and see if there's actually something, more going on. They just hear that I've had troubles with depression, anxiety, and fibro in the past, and that is what they want to put everything on. It's like I said, oh, you got another arm growing out of your body? That's your fibro. Or you're over anxious and the anxiety in your body is causing that arm to grow. So you should really meditate more. Maybe try acupuncture. And when I tell you I have tried meditation, I have been in therapy. Sorry, I hit the mic. Only thing I haven't tried is acupuncture and those weird water chambers where like you get desensitized or whatever. I can't remember what they're called. I had somebody recommend those to me once. Like, I've tried yoga, I've tried a chiropractor, I've tried so many different things. It is ridiculous. And I'm not saying some of that stuff hasn't been helpful. Like, the meditation has helped with my heart rate. It has helped me be a little more relaxed and stuff like that. But, like, it is not fixing these problems. And, so, I've had basically with being chronically ill over the years, whatever is going on, I have peaks and I have like times when I'm doing really well, or I have to kind of shelve how I feel and push through it. So I'll have a period where I feel really good, and I'll do one of two things will happen. I'll feel really good, or some crisis will happen where I have to, quickly, I am using the Artwell metallic paints for the castle. I'm using like a light, very light purple, a dark purple for the roof, and then like a very light, almost whitish, pale purple for the actual castle itself. So I get to feeling better and I overdo it because I know I'm going to feel bad very soon, and so I better do all the things I can do while I feel well and get that, a lot of stuff marked off my to-do list. Or a crisis comes up and I have to just basically tap into my reserves. If things go well over a period of time, I will develop a small amount of energy reserves in my body. And so if a crisis comes up, I usually can tap into that and power through it. And I was tapping in those energy reserves the first 8 to 10 months of this job. And so there are none to be had now, but I will do that for some length period of time. And so that's kind of an upswing. Because my body will be like, okay, I'll let you do this, but you're going to pay for it. And then I have a downswing. And then that's where a lot of times you won't see me post videos. I'll have to take breaks. I'm not coloring. I'm dealing with more depression. I'm dealing with burnout. I'm physically not feeling well, and so on. And so if I don't rest during those periods, they just last even longer. And so sometimes it could take just 3 days or a couple weeks, right? In the past almost year, I've had those periods, but I've been able to get back to an upswing within a few weeks, a reasonable amount of time. Usually that's how it happens. The first 8 or 10 months of this job, I was tapping in reserves and I was on that all the time. I was borrowing. Basically, I ran out of reserves. I was borrowing. And I feel like my body's was like, you gonna pay for this? And I'm like, well, I've got to power through this. So then July hit. And if y'all remember, that was when I was like, hey, I'm going to meditate and get on my treadmill. And I'm feeling, it's not as stressful at work. So I feel like I can build some good habits. And it was like as soon as I thought I could do that, my body said, "Oh, time to get sick." And so here we are. And also time for massive, massive burnout, because the 2.5 weeks I was sick, there was only like 3 or 4 days where I could I could color, that I even felt just well enough to sit up and color, or sit up and do something that wasn't just laying there being miserable and not feeling like doing anything at all. So it wasn't like I had a lot of rest and recovery time during that period. And um, I'm just so tired, y'all. I'm so tired, but yet I'm not able to sleep well. I'm also having problems with my CPAP machine, and I have to schedule an appointment with the sleep doc anyway in order to probably get my prescription renewed so that I can replace it. I mean, it's working, it's just making a noise, and it's really annoying. But like, I can't this isn't like regular. When I've had really depressive episodes in the past, like I could sleep 16, 18 hours a day. I can't do that right now. If I feel fatigued enough that I have to go lay down, sometimes I'm just laying there listening to stuff, because I can't physically go to sleep, but I just can't physically get out of the bed either. And it's just been really hard to care about a lot of things right now. Like, I've been so just worn out and tired that I'm trying to think of how to explain it, but it's just like, the thought of upcoming work projects, I'm just not feeling motivated. I'm not feeling like, if that same project I had the first half of this year popped up right now, I couldn't physically do it. Mentally, physically couldn't do it. Like, I used up everything. And like I said, the fact that I'm physically hurting and struggling is not helping this at all either. It's not like just a mental burnout. It's a physical, I'm struggling with health issues too. And so, I've had a really hard time coloring this month. I'll sit down to color, and it will take me 5 times as long because I will keep getting distracted. I'm not super focused on it. Yesterday I was working on I was wanting to try to finish out the Coloring Tips and Tricks marker series, and so I did a couple pages yesterday and recorded them, and I was mad at them because the picture didn't come out quite the way I wanted it to, and like, I just get so just want to just throw it in and just give up. Like, I was like, yesterday I went from, I'm going to try to do a couple coloring videos, to I want to delete my channel. This is awful. And I never had that kind of flip quick reaction like that, all in the span of like 2 hours. It's just been, yeah, I haven't done nearly as much as I wanted to this month because I just don't feel as much like coloring, and I don't feel as much like doing videos, and like all the planning stuff has not been being updated. Work, I'm hanging in there, but I'm doing better on tasks where I don't need to think. It's the big brain stuff that worries me because I just don't have it right now. Heck, I went to Sonic yesterday to get some cheese sticks and stuff, and because I hadn't had any in a few weeks, and I know my order by heart. I could do it in my sleep, and yesterday I forgot the drink, and that may seem like minor, but it's been like that across the board. Like, I'm forgetting minor things, not just food orders, but like, calling to schedule appointments and things like that. And it just, I think the toll of just 2023 has been really hard, and I think that, and I'm just lumping in the last part of 2022 with that. I think the just pushing through and going on that, like, I'm finally paying the price for that right now. And
it's really upsetting. I had a really hard day yesterday. I had worked through the week so much trying to get tasks done so that, because usually my energy levels run out by Thursday and Friday, so the more work I get done at the start of the week, the better set up my week is. And so I had a few meetings and stuff yesterday to take care of, and it should have all in all been a good day because it was Friday. I had a few work projects to work on. Oh, okay. I was wondering what I was doing here. So I was deciding which ones I wanted to use for the bunnies, because they're coming up next. And I didn't know if I wanted to use the rainbow or the candy ones. And I think I ended up using the candy. But shoot, I gotta get up and give medicines here in a minute. Yeah, I had my therapy appointment yesterday. I ended it 15 minutes early because I really just ran out of stuff to talk about. I care, but I don't care right now. I am just exhausted, hurting, staring at a wall level, like nothing. There's no shows that interest me, like that. A lot of times I can, during a time like this, grab onto a new show I like and just binge watch it, and there's always at least something that to look forward to and do, and it's just not been that way. I've just been putting in the motions, and I'm just, I don't know what this means. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not deleting the channel. But it might mean that I back off for a while. I have some back-to-back videos I want to post this week, and then maybe starting in October, I just don't do as many. Maybe I just keep it to one a week or something. And there's some other reasons for that I'm going to talk about in a second. Do I actually show you guys the rabbits? I swear, if we sit here this whole time and I'm painting these rabbits and y'all can't see them, that's going to be very irritating. Yeah. Okay, well I'm painting his belt with the gold. The one thing about these paints to keep in mind is they do cover up line art if you apply them thick enough. So this is where I really did need to use a small brush to try to minimize how much they were bleeding into the lines. But no, I'll talk a few more minutes and then try to figure out what's going on here. My therapist and I talked about a plan for the next few months, and to try to get out of this rut. But I just, like I said, I may limit my videos to once a week or something for a while until I feel better. Like I said, it's been hard for me to even feel like coloring, much less doing coloring related videos. And so I did want to give you guys a heads up for that. Oh, thank goodness I figured this out. So with the gold, I do decide, did I miss those ears? Wait. No, that was okay. I thought that was the edge of the page. I was like, I did not miss
better not have missed any ears. I did all the rabbit's ears gold and their noses gold too, just to kind of tie all that in together. There we go. I finally figured out what was going on. I'm using my new overhead mount for this, which is that metal one I showed y'all in the supply haul. It is really sturdy. I don't get the wobbliness I was getting with my other one. Like, I'm really pleased with it. I do think if I do videos, like, there's a very good chance I'll be able to keep up with more over the next few months because I can use it in the living room instead of having, excuse me, except for having to be in the office all the time. Give me just a sec. Okay, I just realized Big Ear has his meds on a schedule, and I wanted to make sure that he got them on time. Which I had my morning meds to take too, but so yeah, it's also equally frustrating. This is all happening right around like Halloween because, of course, like y'all know how much I love Halloween coloring. It's one of the reasons I color it throughout the year because oftentimes, for some reason, October just seems to be a really bad month for me in terms of feeling mentally and physically very good. So, I think I even am going to have to limit my coloring because yesterday, my arm was aching last night, and I don't think this is why, but I think it might have contributed to is the fact that I was coloring so much yesterday doing those other videos, and so I think I'm coming in here with the orange. Again, trying to be very careful not to cover up the line art. There's some lines on the bunny that are going to get covered up, but I try to at least limit the ones on the edges and stuff. And I probably should have used a smaller brush here, but again, I was being lazy. Something else too that will probably reduce the number of videos. We've got my husband and I basically have some financial goals that we were talking about, some things we would like to get paid off, to make things easier on us, bills wise, and we're always planning, just because we both work remote and stuff, and with the economy being what it is, we always like to, regardless of what job we have, we always want to make sure we have enough expenses in case something happens to one of our jobs. But we the more stuff we have paid off, the better position we're in if something like that happens, and it takes a while to find another position just because because of where we live, we really need to work remotely. And commuting's not really an option unless it's something right down the street. We just don't live close enough to Nashville to really commute on a regular basis. And we've been talking a lot about trying to get some things paid off and this and that. And because of that, if you've noticed, I've been doing a lot of flips and buying quite a few new books lately in the past few months, well, this year, because when I'm stressed out, I don't feel like coloring, but boy howdy, I sure love shopping for coloring stuff. And I should have already, I've tried a few things like the point system and stuff like that, but I think probably what I'm going to do instead is just severely curb my purchases, mostly just because we're trying to pay off debt as quickly as possible. And so I'm going to, you won't see nearly as many coloring book flips coming from me. I'm going to try to curb my purchases. At first I was like, I'm going to do like a no buy for the rest of the year. And then I'm like, ha ha ha, that's funny. But I was thinking instead of just using maybe the revenue I make off the channel and just going off that. I don't make much, guys. Like, so that would be a good budget number that would at least allow me to be able to buy a few books during the month. I'm not counting buying stuff I'm already using, like replacements in this. So if, not that I'm going to run out of watercolors anytime soon, but like markers, I frequently have to replace my budget markers just because I run through them so quickly. So, like, markers aren't really counted in this unless I'm just buying a whole new set for the heck of it. Like, we're not going to be doing that. But if I'm buying markers as a replacement or something, that's different. But like net new type purchases, I'm just going to back off quite a bit. I have plenty. This gives me a great opportunity to use what I have. And yeah, it kind of sucks because I like to be able to show you guys new books so that you guys know what you're buying and stuff. But, we things have been so stressful this year. We just want to set ourselves up for success in regards to this. And if anything were to change in the future, so because there are some things like we need to buy a new car. Both our vehicles are like, I think we have a 2003 and a 98, and it's not been a problem because we both work remotely and we don't really drive a lot of places. However, it would be nice to have something that's like 10, 15 years old, maybe just a little bit newer, so that because I mean the maintenance in the cars is just, and the car and the truck has just been increasing just due to the age of the vehicles, and it would be nice to have something a little newer and a little more reliable. And what we were waiting on was for the used car market to get better, and looks like we've been waiting 3 years and probably going to have to wait another year, and I don't think it's going to get any better. So we do want to be able to get a new vehicle eventually. We also have some work we want to do around the house, and yeah, just some different things we've got planned and some goals we've got. It's one of those things, like, the more I buckle down now, the sooner we can get to where we want to be. So yeah, you're going to see fewer flips, fewer new books, fewer new supplies, which, like I said, for the most part, I feel like I'm pretty good, just in that I may need some new markers. The biggest problem's going to come when my Copics, I have refills for one of my set of Copics, but I don't have refills for the others. So I'll probably just have to buy them as they come up needed, rather than investing in them in bulk. And of course, I will, really move a lot of big wants to, like my Christmas and birthday lists and stuff. So yeah, that's going on too. Just wanted to let y'all know. And if y'all notice that happening all of a sudden, nobody panic. We're not in any sort of peril. It just, we're trying to be smart, and we're trying to be proactive. Let's see. I don't think there's anything else. I mentioned a couple times that Leroy's been kind of struggling the last few months, actually acting like he's kind of scared and quiet and off and upset about something, and we still can't quite figure that out. I do know when storms come along, like, he used to hate storms regardless, right? Like, but now he just practically is inconsolable. And we've been messing around some with his amitriptyline to try to help. It's been better. The biggest thing is he gets so upset, like, he's been throwing up. And I mean, she did an x-ray, she did full blood work on him, checked him tip to tail and couldn't find anything else wrong with him. So she's thinking it's all like anxiety related, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because when he does have stomach upset, it's always first thing in the morning, and like he's inside all night. So I would think if he's upset at something that I'm assuming is happening outside, wouldn't he be upset? There's nothing in the house that is upsetting him as far as I know. I assume it's the dogs outside and all that. Why would he be upset first thing in the morning and not like at night or something? And so I don't know. But he has been throwing up less, so maybe. Maybe. Um but he's still quieter than he used to be, and I still feel bad because he seems nervous, a little more nervous and timid all the time. But um, he's definitely doing better than he was, a month ago. So I'm just thinking it's going to take time. I don't know. Maybe a big dog outside came up to the porch one time in the evening, the screened-in porch, growled at him, did something to scare him, and he's been spooked ever since. I mean, that's entirely possible. He's very dramatic for a cat that's never had to, ever since he come inside, never had anything bad happen to him. And it's not the other cats, y'all. In fact, he is the alpha cat in the house, and I probably won't be able to get another cat as long as I have him, because I just think he would come unglued on, like, he doesn't know how to play with other cats very well, and even though I think he would try to play with a new cat, like, all he'd do is just make them mad, and they would probably fight all the time because he gets grumpy very easily. He is used to a couple of the outdoor cats, but like new cats, he doesn't like very much. He's made that very clear. New cats outside, so I just like, he does not seem one that I can bring other cats in to the household with. Um, so you know, I don't think it's any of the other cats in the house. If anything, he's tormenting them. Not really, but uh, so yeah, I still kind of a mystery what's going on with him, but it has been better. And I mean, he's not throwing up, he's not acting sick, he's just acting a little timid, and for the most part, we've just been kind of doing a wait and see, because there's really just been so much else going on too. He doesn't seem like, like I said, his is more of just give it time. I was a little worried about Bagheera this week, because I thought he was dropping weight again all of a sudden, but I reweighed him and the scale was off, and he actually seems right where he needs to be, but he's just eating a lot, like non-stop eating a lot. And but I think it's part of the Cushing's, where he has the steroids in his body that are causing him to burn calories a lot faster, and now that we've gotten him eating again and his stomach is healed and feeling better, he is just eating nonstop to keep up with it. So I don't think it's a new development. He goes in for a checkup in December, and so I think I'm just going to check in with the vet and make sure she doesn't want me to bring him in sooner. I assume we will retest him for everything at that point, but he seems to be doing well. I mean, all of them seem to be doing well for the most part. It's just now it's all me. It's either I'm sick or the cats are sick. My husband seems to be doing pretty well, other than just overall muscle soreness from doing his weights and getting on the elliptical and stuff. So I'm thankful for that. But that's kind of where we're at, guys. It's funny because I'm just about done with this, and this has been a really long coloring chat, but I hadn't done one in a few months, and I don't know when I'm going to do one again because I'm in this down part. There's Wintery. I just don't have the cats visit me. Ever since Sidonia and Scamper passed earlier this year, I just don't have coloring assistants like I used to. Like Wintery will show up if I'm outside, but she won't really show up if I'm in my office. And the others could care less. They don't get up on my desk. So been really missing my coloring assistants lately. But I'm in a rut, and I've had high points and ruts, all year, but it's always felt like give it a little time and I'll pull out of it and we'll just go back to barely making it through, but surviving. And like this time, I'm gonna need some extra time to get out of that rut. Like I've just been borrowing from my energy for a year. I've been tapping into reserves and then borrowing against for a year, and I've just hit my max point. And like I said, the level of just it's kind of scary because it's like I get upset about things, but then there's also really just this feeling of like, oh well. Like, I can't even tell you. It's probably actually a pretty healthy mindset to have in a normal person, but for me, who's like an over worrier about everything, I just don't physically and mentally have the capacity to over worry about everything anymore. And so, um, what it would be otherwise healthy in people is concerning for me. And so if I seem quiet, that's why. And like I said, I'm still hurting. It comes and goes. I don't really have much control over that. And some days I'm okay, some days I'm not. We did try a vitamin D prescription level med. Um, it was working like the second or third week. I felt like it was helping a lot. Then there went a couple weeks where it was like felt like I didn't take it at all. And then this week, it feels like I felt a little better, but it's all been restless energy because I'm so burnt out and I'm so having pain and all this other stuff going on that I've just been restless with it, which is not productive either. But good in that my vitamin D levels seem to be going back up. So I am going to talk to the doctor Wednesday because I think I have 2 or 3 more doses left. I take once a week. I'm going to see if this is something we can do long term, if they want me to like do blood work or whatever, because I do feel like that is helping in that respect. It's just not helping with the more recent developments of stuff. So, yeah, just been a lot of doctor's appointments, a lot of frustration and being upset because I can't shake that I feel like something's bad wrong and nobody seems to want to touch it, and literally or physically or literally or figuratively wants to touch it. And I just don't want to be fighting and then 2 years from now find out it is like a lymphoma or something like that. Like that's the stuff that really scares me, that it's going to be ignored just because nobody wants to actually take me seriously, which is a huge, huge problem right now in healthcare. So, but not going, again, it's bad when I'm not even going to rant about it today. Yeah, I'm surprised I've talked this long, I'll be honest with y'all. But yeah, unless some major development happens that I want, that I want to update you guys on. And I don't mind sharing this stuff on here because, I mean, obviously I don't share details about my job or anything job adjacent for the most part, just because, I like to think I'm a little smarter than that. But when it comes to like my health and my life and stuff, I don't mind sharing this with y'all because, you know, like I said, this is a unique thing where I can't figure out what this is. Nobody can seem to figure out what this is. It's really causing me some pain and problems. And, like, I don't know, maybe somebody out in the color tube community is like, oh, hey, I've had this happen before and it turned out to be this. So I can at least have an idea when I go see the nurse practitioner that I could just suggest. Um, because I think I've been scared to voice my concern. Like, I've been scared to say I'm worried it's lymphoma or something, just so because I don't want to seem like a hypochondriac. But it's kind of getting to that point where I guess I need to be more forward about my concerns so that they will do something. And so, yeah, anybody that's had this type of experience, please let me know who you saw, what what they figured out, how they figured it out. I would greatly appreciate it. And yeah, so the cool thing is with the if I do videos once a week, it might be just one new flip through. It might be a demo of a page, like I might show y'all the base. We may just base a picture in markers. We may just base a picture in watercolors. Does that mean I will have that picture finished at the end of the month? No. In fact, I'm probably going to have a lot of whips this month. But I think I'm just going to embrace more of the what I feel, you know, what do I feel like doing right now? And if it doesn't lead to a finished picture, then that's just what it is. So the next couple days, my plan is my plan is Monday, I'm going to do my last tips and tricks official video. All I'm really, for markers, all I'm covering is marker storage, and then my favorite way to color with markers, which is using like an outlining method once I color the base. Wednesday, I'm going to do a demo where I take a picture and I do blending with both Copics and chisel tipped markers. I also do try to do some shading. I know somebody requested that, and I'll be honest, I'm not very good at shading because I tend to just outline instead of shade. I'm not real pleased with how that picture came out. Like, I really beat myself up on that picture yesterday. Y'all just don't know. I felt really insecure about my ability to do anything lately. Work, color, exist, anything. And but I'm still gonna show the picture because I want to finish out the series. Monday I will probably also post links to other marker colorists and resources that I think would be super helpful for anyone that wants to learn more about markers, because really, other than the few things that I'm going to show y'all, I've pretty much shown y'all all that I know and all that I do. I'm not an expert. I don't spend a lot of time blending or really pushing markers to do things like I should, and I don't do a lot of you know, like I said, light sources and shading, and I know somebody had asked for reflections, but I'll see if I can find somebody that can do those, but I don't really deal with those. It's just a lot of specific things that are just kind of outside my realm, and so rather than trying to do them and do them badly, I'm going to see if I can find other people. Like, if you want to learn more about blending and you want to learn more about, you know, advanced coloring with markers, I'm going to try to find some resources for y'all. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up there. Besides, we're just about finished with the picture anyway. If you have stuck around for this whole color and chat, you are a star. I really appreciate it. If you only listened to part of it, I completely get it. But I figured let's give you this monster of a color and chat The other two videos will be longer, but they're also going to be talking a lot more about the techniques and the page I'm coloring. So I guess I'm piling y'all up with a lot of long videos before I probably take a little bit of a break. And like I said, when I say break, it may not be a complete break. I'm just going down to maybe a video or two a week. I've had a live stream I've wanted to do since June to give away a bunch of books. I have the pile of books sitting here. My hope is to do them for the end of the year at this point. So I appreciate everybody's patience with me, and I appreciate all the positive thoughts. And I hit the mic, sorry, and the encouragement y'all have been giving. And a lot of times I've hated it because I feel like I'm letting y'all down. Like I said, that marker series, the whole time I'm like, I'm not an expert. I'm not doing this as good as I want to do it for y'all. And it's just, I don't know, watercolor, everything. It's just, yeah, it's just been a lot lately. And I don't know. I'm hoping that the next few months I can, the plan that my therapist and I have to come up with something, with a way to kind of rest and recover. I hope that's enough and that it carries me through for a while, but we're just going to have to see. So, so do I pull the whole picture? Here, let me just show y'all this clip at the end. What am I doing here? Did I forget something? What did I forget? Oh, I'm just going over the windows here in the back. Okay, hang on a second. So here is the picture dried, showing you guys the shine from those clear watercolors. I really like that I did that. They look a little splotchy in some areas. I might see if I can use my Castle Art metallic pencils and go over those splotchy parts. I don't really want to re-wet the watercolors, but I may do that too. But no, it all turned out real nice. The watercolors I feel like did a really good job on this paper. They are a bit faded as they dry. I think if you saw me putting the red on those feathers, like how rich that red looked at first, but of course as it dried it definitely faded. So unless I was using multiple layers of this color, I probably wouldn't use this for, building just a watercolor picture, but if all you're doing is basing it for your colored pencils or something, I think that the art wells are a great set to do just that with. So that's the thing. You don't need the most expensive watercolor when it comes to coloring, particularly if you're just basing a picture, but if you're adding elements like the rabbits and stuff, maybe you want some fancy little metallic type watercolors like we've got here. So pleased with how it's turned out. Just don't know when I'm ever going to get to it with a pencil, but I wanted to do one more thing for watercolor summer. And so I'm going to post this on Instagram as a whip, and hopefully whoever wanted to see this gets a chance to see it. And yeah, I've got a couple other pictures in here I'd like to base with some watercolors too. So I have a couple more sets that are kind of mid-range, budget range coming in. They were like the last two sets I ordered before I decided to do my budget change. And so I'll probably test those out. That next month will probably be a small supply haul, and then y'all see me test those out as well. So thanks guys for watching. If you stuck through everything, the whole coloring chat, wow, thank you. Sorry if I seem a bit of a downer, but that's just how the reality of things are right now for me. And that's one of the reasons I don't want to do a lot of coloring chats while I'm like this, because I worry they all will be like this. So hopefully I will be feeling better soon, but I will keep you guys up to date on the medical stuff. If something major happens, I definitely will let you guys know. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.